Hello, thanks for tuning in. I'm covering Jeff's call to the line on the 22nd of May 2024. Jeff is speaking to Matt. He's called in saying that, in his opinion, the fact that so many people believe in the existence of God can be taken as some evidence for the existence of God. Matt pointed out this is a logical fallacy called argument ad populum. And then Jeff went to something which sort of surprised me a bit. He asked whether a blind person could be justified in believing that sight exists, that sight is a faculty that people have actually got, and indeed color. And I think possibly his point there is that, well, he seemed to be saying that they haven't got evidence for color, they haven't got evidence for sight, yet they believe in it based on the testimony of other people saying that they've got it, in the same way that me as a non-believer, because so many millions of people out there claim to have experienced God, or they believe that there is a God, that should be evidence for me that a God exists. So Matt's already contradicted that and said, no, that's a logical fallacy. And now we're stuck on this issue of whether blind people who've always been blind from birth can be rationally justified and have an evidence-based belief that other people have got this faculty of sight and color. So let's just have a listen to where it goes.
Do you think it's possible to teach it to reasonably, for a blind person to have a reasonable warranted belief that other people are not blind?
Well, the only evidence they would have for that is the spoken word of other people.
That's
okay, right. That's okay. Now that's the thing I'm getting at. He thinks that if a lot of people out there tell me they've experienced God and they can say something about their experience and that they assert that there is a God through their experience, that should be enough for me to accept it in the same way that a blind person can accept their sight just based on testimony. So he incorrectly believes that the only evidence blind people who've always been blind have got for believing that sight exists as a faculty is based on simply other people's testimony. Now, that's not true. There are experiments that can be done, or there are ways of demonstrating to blind people that sight is an actual thing and that color is an actual thing. I personally have got some red-green deficiency in my color. I didn't believe it. I went to a sight specialist, and I was given a book with colored dots. You've probably had this test yourself, and I was told, for example, in this picture, if you've got no deficiency, you should be able to see the number 3. I couldn't see the number 3. I didn't believe that anybody could see it. I thought, no, I don't believe I've got this. I'm not prepared to believe it based purely on the eye specialist saying so. I took that book home and I showed it to several people. That picture said, do you see a number there? And my sister said, oh yeah, that's a 3. I said, what? And that corroborating what the specialist is saying. I showed it to other people. Yep, they can see 3. And I realized then I had evidence that I've got a deficiency and that there is some other, there is a faculty that I haven't got that other people have got. So it is possible to demonstrate to blind people these things. He just doesn't know.
not true, and it's not the question I asked. So I'm gonna see. I'm in full on Zen mode.
I heard you.
Hang on, Jeff. Hang on, Jeff. Stop interrupting me. It's never going to go good for you. I promise. I'm in full on Zen mode.
Okay.
I didn't ask that question. Keep talking over me, Jeff.
Yeah, but he effectively said no, it's not possible. He's already really answered the question. Matt wanted either a yes or no. He said that it would have to be based purely on testimony. In other words, no. And then Matt could have then said, well, no, you're wrong. And he could have described one of the ways that we can give blind people from birth an evidence-based warrant for believing that there is such a thing as sight and color. So I don't know why he doesn't, and he didn't in this entire call.
And let's see how quickly this ends for you. Here's the issue. I didn't ask you what evidence are you aware of that could be presented. I asked, are you convinced that it's possible for a blind person to have an evidence-based, warranted belief that other people are not blind?
What's the evidence, Matt?
Yeah, well, again, he's effectively saying no. It's a shame he didn't just say no, but he's effectively saying no. And he's asking Matt, what is the evidence? I think it's a fair question. He's just in a state of ignorance. He doesn't know. Matt could tell him. And for some reason, he's not doing it.
Jeff, I swear, if you
You're
don't
asking
answer
if
the
it's possible.
question that I'm asking you one more time, I'll just stop. It's a yes or no question. I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to mute you just so, because I know you're going to interrupt here in just a second. Here's what I'm trying to do. Might be worthwhile to explain this to all the people who haven't done this for 20 years. You have, well, I don't think you'll need this explanation, but here we go. Jeff has this understanding that seems to be that certain things can't be demonstrated unless you can actually see them or experience them yourself. That is simply not true. That's not the way evidence works. And so I'm asking a series of...
He is kind of saying that, but more importantly, he's saying that we can be rationally justified in believing something based on somebody else's experience. That's what his real point is.
Questions to see where Jeff and I specifically part ways. Because if Jeff and I agree that blind people can have an evidence-based warranted belief that other people can see, then we get to move on to, can they have an evidence-based warranted belief that other people can see colors? Not can they ever understand color fully? Not can they themselves experience color, but can they have an evidence-based warranted belief that other people experience color?
Yeah, but the ultimate destination of this entire conversation is, can we be rationally justified in believing in the existence of God based on the testimony of other people simply because so many people believe X?
I'm asking these questions in this order so that we can figure out exactly where we part ways. And Jeff, rather than answering the question that I've asked repeatedly, is still stuck in, I'm not willing to listen and consider what you have to say. I only want to say what I already think. Well, what you think is wrong, demonstrably, you've already been wrong about a fallacy. So let's try this again. Jeff, do you think it's possible for a blind person to have an evidence-based warranted belief that there are people who can in fact see?
I asked you a question about that, Matt.
Goodbye.
That's all I wanted you to clarify.
Goodbye, Jeff.
I wanted you to clarify
Goodbye,
what's
Jeff.
evidence. What's
Okay, yeah, so Matt hung up there. He was not prepared to go on with the call anymore. He wanted an answer, yes or no. The caller didn't give it. Instead, the caller asked for what evidence is there? What is the evidence that blind people who've been blind from birth have got for being warranted in believing that there is such a thing as sight and color? He asked that question. Matt didn't answer it. Oddly enough, he answered it after the call ended. He gave examples of, different types of deficiencies that people have got. How hearing is like an analogy for a blind person, hearing can be like an analogy for sight. That you hear different sounds. You've got ears. This is where, and we've got eyes. That's where the data comes in for the sight, and how we can actually set up a double blind experiment for this to demonstrate that sight and color are actually a thing. How people have got deficiencies, just like I said, I've got deficiency in color, and this was demonstrated to me, even though I wouldn't have believed it otherwise. I was scientifically demonstrated that this is the case. Matt gave this very detailed account on how it is possible for people to have a warranted belief in these things. But he didn't give it to him. He waited till he'd hung up, and then the conversation was over, and that was that. And I wouldn't have done that. I would have just said, look, here's how it's possible. I wouldn't have insisted on a yes or no. I would have said, look, here's how it's possible. This is how it can be done. And the guy would have said, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. And then they could have moved on to the next stage. I don't think the guy was being dishonest. I think he was being dumb, but I don't think he was being dishonest. Okay, that's all for now. a bit of a frustrating call there, because I would like it to have gone further, so that they could have arrived at the final destination, really, which was testing his claim that we've got a warrant based on other people's experience of God, for example, or what they claim to be God, or their belief in God, and the numbers who believe or claim to have experienced God. We can have a warranted belief based on that, in the same way that, as he claims, a blind person in his ignorance, a blind person purely on somebody's testimony, can be warranted in believing in sight and color. So yeah, of course he was wrong about that. Matt didn't demonstrate to him how he was wrong, only after the call ended. But I would like to have seen it get to convincing him that we are not warranted in believing in the existence of God just because X number of people claim that a God exists or claim to have experienced God. We didn't get there, unfortunately. Okay, thanks a lot for watching. Goodbye.